welcome to the Crafty Mini, and this is the next episode in the Wizards box that we're making. So we're going to do like a step by step in this little sort of mini series, as it were, just showing you each component and how I've made each of them, painted them and all that sort of thing. So starting off with the box itself. So started off with a simple it's black PVA and water mix, just to get a base coat down. I'm not too fussed about if it looks scratchy and things, because we're going to weather it, as you'll see from here on in. And just to break up the colour of it, because it's made of a cheap plywood, so it'll soak up the paint quite well. We'll leave like a slightly furry texture behind, which you'll see now with the weathering which is going on in the background. This actually gets rid of that. So what I'm doing to break up the colours, I'm starting off with this US Olive Drab by Vallejo, and just dotting it on with a sponge and then rubbing it in. And I'm not too worried about it being rough and leaving streak marks, because this is going to get covered up by other colours after this. But I'm mainly concentrating on the corners, if you see, where the top edge will meet to the side in that same corner as well, and same on the bottom corners. And this again just to break up the colours, because we want this to look like an old gnarly box at the end of it. Right, so after we've gone round, I go in now with a brown, same thing again, and then go back to that olive drab, and then again just adding layers to this, and you'll just build up over time. It does look a bit sketchy at the moment, but just rub it in, keep rubbing it in. And what this does, the sponge will rub the paint in all over where we want it, and also when you go across the sort of the lengths of the box, it'll actually get rid of that furry texture which is due to the base coat, because it'll draw out the wood grain and it leaves like a furry, which normally you have to sand down. But as you can see, I'm just adding more and more depth of colour, going back in with the original olive drab, then I'll jump back to the brown and just keep adding it and adding it. Now the lid itself, it's very streaky there, but I'm not too worried, because I'm going to put some form of detail or something on the lid to break it up anyway. But I'm just making a point now, going round all the edges, going on quite heavy, and then just roughing it out and bleeding it out to the further interior of the box. It's quite a nice technique. It just roughs up the box, breaks all the colours, and because the idea, you want it to look visually interesting and as much detail as possible. And on a simple plywood box like this, apart from the hinges and the little lock mechanism, there's not a lot to it unless we add it ourselves. So again, just going in with it's just a bit of sponge from some online order, to be honest. It's from like a packing sponge, and I'm just using that to rub through, and it slowly destroys the sponge, and I'll just refold it over with each new colour. Okay, so now I'm going in with a khaki colour. So this is English Uniform by Vallejo, and same areas as I did the olive drab, but I'm keeping it closer to the edge, and I'm almost using it as a highlight, and I'm going down the very extremes of the box. And this is just again to make it pop, and you'll see I'll use the sponge and my hand just to rub it out. And again, it just adds a bit more character to the box and a bit of just something different, rather than just being a plain plywood box or a plain black box as well. And just going in, rubbing it in, adding the colours, and doing this on all the sides, each of the face inside. I've not done the bottom because you're not going to see it, but I take my time just going over the edges, and if there's bigger areas where there's more of the colour, that's fine. This is not supposed to be like super neat. And you'll see it's looking really rough and ready. And I'm measuring there, I'm giving a rough idea of what I want to put on the front. You can see here, so just buffing it out onto the extremes, down the actual vertices of the box itself, just to make that side pop. And I'll do it again on this side now. So again in the corners, going down, adding paint onto the sponge where I need, and just rubbing it in. And this is the same technique throughout this, for every colour that I do. Now with this mini-series with the Wizards box, the idea is, because it's almost completed now as I'm looking at it on my desk while I'm editing this, I reckon another day, maybe day and a half of work, and it'll be done. But just so people can follow it easier, because I jump around a lot while I'm actually physically making these things, is that I'm going to upload the videos in parts, so you'll see like, so this is the box getting done, I'll do a video on the components and things like that. Just trying something different. I'm looking at making more of this sort of, in inverted commas, props and things. So if there's anything you'd like to see, let me know in the comments. And you see it being quite rough, quite random, just adding the colour, and in the very corners I'll add it quite heavily, and then I'll use my finger or the sponge to smoosh it out. and same around the little clasps that are the hinges and the clasp on the front. You can see I'm just edging the box there, just because it breaks up the colour when you look at it. And when it's fully complete, it just looks like a dirty, crappy box, which is what I want, because when you open it, it's going to be filled with all these, you know, these magical things that a wizard would carry with them. And again, just going quite rough, and when you blend it in, it's fine. I've done this similar sort of thing before with chalks and pastels. That can be done. You've just got to be a bit lighter when you come to put it in. And now that those two layers are on, so the last layer is this orange brown by Vallejo, and this is used very, very sparingly, and you'll see that I rub it in straight away with my hand because I don't want it to be soaked in too much. And again, round the edges, a couple of spots in the middle, and just rub it straight in. And this actually, that orangey brown makes it all pop, come together. Again, the lid looks a bit patchy there, but that's okay because we are covering that up. But you can see there, just adding it in, and it just adds a bit of definition, a bit of colour, just to break it all up. And you'll see somewhere, like you see there around by the clasp, there's a bigger streak and it's a bit patchy, but that's fine because once it's rubbed in, it's there. It's all adding to the character. So this will be coming up to the end of this first episode on the Wizard's Box. If there's any ideas or anything you'd like me to add to this, let me know in the comments below. The next video will be coming up tomorrow, and that's the components and some of the things that I've actually made using bits around the house and a few glass bottles that I've bought from a local hobby shop. But you'll see that, and then the idea is each day it'll be a different part of the build until finally we get to the final shots and you see it. So I hope you liked the video. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you soon.